Right then, there we go. How are you, people? It is now 8:02. Apologies for the slightly late start. Let's just switch that phone off for a start. Welcome, episode 52 of the Sports Therapy Association podcast. Silent. If you are listening to the podcast, then thank you very much. Obviously, you haven't joined us live, but just to remind you, you're always welcome to join us live by coming either along to the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page, or if you don't like Facebook much, then you can join us at YouTube as well, where it also streams live. But to those of you who have joined us live, then thank you very much. People are always coming in the room already. Hi, Catherine. And if you do join us live, just to remind you, then any questions and comments you've got, I can bring up on the screen. People listening in audio land can't see that, but there's Catherine Reimer saying, hi, Matt. Hi, everyone. So it's a lovely way to network, meet people, let people know who you are, etc., etc. if you do decide to join us on Facebook or YouTube. So there we go. Before we get into tonight's session, which was originally planned to come out last month, but technical issues meant we couldn't do it, and ever since then people have been asking us, when's it going to happen, when's the insurance special, to the extent that I'm quite scared now that people were so keen on it to happen. I think it's all positive. I think it's good. I'm really looking forward to bringing our guest up, but obviously, yeah, if you've got questions tonight, more than ever, it's all about you guys asking our guest, David Balens of Balens Insurance, pretty much anything you want, really. We will direct it. He's told me he's old enough and ugly enough to handle anything. So fair. It's all fair play now. Doors are open to you. But before I do that, if you'd be so kind, if you are listening on the podcast, be nice. Give us a little nice rating and a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It really helps just raise us on the Google results, and it helps just other people hear what we put out there. We have some fantastic guests, amazing 52 episodes now, but they just kind of sit there dormant unless you guys actually go in and put a rating and a review. So please take time to go on Apple. You can do it on your iPhones. It's like a 2-minute thing. Go into your app and just leave a nice star and a review, and that will really help us out. Thanks very much last week to Rachel Zoffness, Dr. Rachel Zoffness. Again, people have just, there's been a week of people saying that was great. Thanks very much. What was the book? It's been fantastic. I mean, I love all of the guests, but Dr. Rachel Zoffness in particular left a massive impression on you. I think it's something to do with the times. And we are moving into hopefully a new era where people are understanding a little bit more about the psychosocial element of biopsychosocial. It's all very positive. People are starting not to feel so challenged by realizing that a person's psychosocial state can have an effect on the levels of pain, as well as or in place of actual tissue damage. So it's cool. I'm hoping we do our bit to help therapists evolve and move on along those lines rather than staying kind of like 10, 20 years ago. But guests like Dr. Rachel Zoffness, that was amazing. I mean, she was so calm and but passionate at the same time, and managed to explain some really complex things. It was great use of analogies. So if you haven't seen that, go along to YouTube. You can watch the video there, or you can obviously listen to it on your favorite podcast app. So thank you, Dr. Rachel Zoffness. It was fantastic work. And obviously her website is there. You can check that out. There are links to the books there, which we talked about last week, which people are still raving about, the pain management workbook, and also the book, which was specifically for teens with consistent or chronic pain. So yeah, check them out. There are links as well in the show notes if you go to Podbean. And also just another note as well, because he was a great guy who I haven't actually heard of before, Dr. Zubin Damania, who's quite a celebrity on YouTube. I mean, in my innocence, maybe because I got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, that's kind of cut YouTube videos out for me. But what a great guy. What did she say he was? I can't remember the word now. But yeah, challenging dogma and kind of not very nice stuff going on in the pharmaceutical world. A disruptor, that's the word she used. And I'd really recommend you check him out. It's an amazing podcast that he's called Z-Dog MD, and he did a great podcast with Rachel Zoffness, and check it out. The link is in the podcast notes as well on Podbean. Well worth listening to and checking out his stuff, unless you're a real kind of anti-vax vaccinator, in which case don't check him out, because you won't like what he has to say. He talks evidence. It's not pretty for people who believe that vaccines are going to end the world. But anyway, without getting too much into that, let's talk about tonight's guest, David Balens. Not Balens, as I put on the advert. I'm sorry. David Balens is here. It's going to be a great opportunity for you guys. Obviously, Balens is not the only insurance company in the world. Thank God, because otherwise it would probably be some monopoly and we'd have terrible service. But it is a company which obviously many members, for example, in STA, work with and support us. I've been with Balens probably for, I don't know how many years, over 10 years, for various different parts of my life. So yeah, it's really exciting. But don't hold back on the questions. If you've got something which has been bothering you, this man's got shoulders wider than the camera, you'll see. And yeah, it's your chance to answer it. Ask questions and we will hopefully help you. But we'll also have a chat about the history of Balens, where it comes from, what it was like having that kind of business during COVID and that sort of stuff. And we're also going to have Gary as well with us. So without further ado, I think I've done all the little admin work. We'll bring up David Balens and also Gary Benson, founder of the STA. Let's get rid of that and bring up these guys. There we go, evening, gentlemen.
Evening all.
Hi. Sorry, I rambled on then for ages and ages, but I have so much to say. It's just, I don't know if you caught, David, Dr. Rachel was off this last week. She was so good. I think, yeah, no, in love is the wrong word. I was in love with the mind. Everything she said was just so, it's just everything an educator should be. It was fantastic. And something you're familiar as well, because your history, you've been involved in yoga and mindfulness and kind of, obviously, I'm interested in that as well. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first of all, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry there's not more of us, but you know, you have to make do with David Balens because you know, if there were more, as I said earlier, I could have achieved a hell of a lot more in my life. But hey, you have to take what's offered, I'm afraid. Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. And as I say, sorry about the hitch last year. I'm sorry also about the laptop wobbling around. I hope that'll. I'll try and step back. Maybe that'll work a little bit more. Right. So my question really to you and everyone is, how can I help? We're about supporting people. Selling is part of what we do. It sounds cheesy, but it's not. We're not driven by growth. We're pulled by it, and as a result, you know, we built up to 75 staff. In our pre-COVID days, we had about 100,000 clients. I don't know what it is now. People are all coming back post-COVID. You know, and that means that we've had to build our own IT platform and compliance and you know, educating the staff continually. And, you know, behind the facade, so much goes on that's not to do with selling, but about making sure we're as good as we can be. And we're not perfect, you know, and we make mistakes and everyone does. And we're always trying to be learning and improving. But today, really, I'm here just to not talk too much about me, although Matt is insistent that I tell you about the swinging 60s and
Yes.
my misadventures on the road to India and various other things, which are kind of so long ago, I've more or less forgotten most of the detail of them anyway. All I would say is that, sorry, Matt, I'm sort of rambling. Is that okay?
No, you go for it. It's lovely. The first time I've had a guest who said, how can I help you? Wonderful. That's great. Great intro.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, what really kicked me off on the whole health thing was coming from a suburban family. You know, it was the time of rebellion. You know, flower power is a bit, I wouldn't call it flower power, but certainly people were rejecting dogma. You know, you talked about dogma. You know, I think you know, there are dogmatic fixed ways of thinking that have persisted throughout history, and now is no exception. And it seems to kind of coalesce around science and, you know, material, you know, pragmatic, empiric knowledge, which, you know, I'm not knocking it. It's out of proportion. That's the problem. So we do need more balance in your lives, and I do salute you and your members because you know, massage is one of the things that I choose as a therapy, and I know that it helps me keep in homeostasis and balance, which was not what I was in India. In India, I had no knowledge of what I was doing. I was like 19, you know, trying all sorts of pharmaceuticals and other things that were, you know, breaking down one's mental conditioning and showing you that you can think and be differently. And out there, I got really ill. I got infective hepatitis, nearly died. This was a road trip of about a year. We were going because my passion was music and I wanted to learn Indian classical music. My mate was a Frenchman who didn't speak any English, so that helped catapult my schoolboy French into doggerel Marseille kind of French. with expletives and stuff. So that was a good education. And he wanted to learn the sitar. So that's what drove us. And as I say, we met Americans that were dodging the Vietnam War, and we learned a lot about what was going on, and also a lot about the new thinking in health. You know, the things like macrobiotics and, you know, natural approaches. And yoga came a little bit later, a year later, when I came back to England. But certainly it helped me get well for a start. You know, strategies about you can think differently, you can meditate, you can realize that your thoughts and feelings have an effect on who you are and what you do. And yeah, that was breaking down the kind of dogma that one had grown up in, really. And yeah, it was culture. It was culture clash as well as it was creative. You know, you know, you think about a Jewish mother in her kitchen. You know, to have her son come back and start cooking brown rice, vegetables, and seaweed when she was trying to give me lokshen and chicken soup was quite a, you know, it was quite a thing. But anyway, from that time, passionate about it. When I decided music wasn't where I wanted to carry on the rest of my life, I got into spiritual teaching and yoga and all sorts of other things, diet. And I was thinking about becoming an osteopath or a naturopath. The problem in those days was you had to have A levels in science and O levels in science, and there was no way I was going back to school. So I just ended up helping Dad, basically, and at the same time I was teaching a yoga class. I was doing semi-pro gigs and recordings and stuff, and I've sort of juggled a lot of that ever since in my adult life. I still play music. I'm still I'm actually launching my own CD of 20 odd songs on my Winged Heart music website, folks. So if you ever listen to the interminable music on hold while you're gnashing your teeth trying to get through to the team at Balens, as I'm sure some of you must have during the COVID, you'll have heard some of my music there on the music on hold. So if it hasn't driven you nuts, there's a lot more where that came from, and that's on my website. It'll be uploaded in the next couple of days, the full CD. So music's still there, a lot of gardening, a lot of tree planting and you know, that kind of thing. I got very involved in the healing movement, and, you know, through time I've been teaching people how to do healing, self-development, meditation and stuff, alongside, you know, educating people about how to run their practices. So I could ramble on about me. I don't want to. What I do want to talk about is evidence. And the reason I want to talk about evidence briefly before we start talking about insurance is that a few years back, some of you may well know, especially those of you that know about or know osteos or chiros or homeopaths, will know that the so-called, what can we call them? They call themselves skeptics, I think. But I think dogmatists, you know, would be also an accurate word. And they unleashed a campaign which totally has undermined a lot of the good that was being done in osteochiro and various other fields. And basically anything to do with complementary therapy, they always say there is no evidence to support. And seeing so many clients under attack as we did, I just got motivated and said, look, you know, why can't we adopt the mores of public health? Public health bases its findings on big data. You know, you get massive amounts of data, so you can start to see what is real. And I felt, well, as I've known during my many years of involvement in the movement, that so many people get helped by what you and people in the sector do. I thought, well, why don't we look at qualitative outcome research rather than practitioner or researcher delivered research? I'm not saying that's wrong or it's not needed, but, you know, let's get masses of data about people who don't resort to drugs and medicine all the time, or certainly not as their this is the only show in town for me kind of decision making. And I started talking to professors who got involved with the CAM sector, like Dave Peters of Westminster and George Lewis of Southampton and Paul Dieppe of Exeter and so on and so forth. And we started to formulate what needed to be done. To the team came along Rob. I'm going into this in detail for a reason. because you asked me what I'm doing these days. This is one of the things I'm doing. I want to get data for our sector from the people that receive the treatments, not the people that deliver them. And we've designed with Rob Verkirk and Melanie Aldridge, Alliance for Natural Health. That's another website that you people need to plug into, because it's a lot of good information that's very often evidence-based that comes through them. And you know, he fights dogmas as well. He's a scientist, he's a researcher, and these people are well worth plugging into. He has come into the team, as has Rosie Daniel, who's a doctor, and another doctor and various people. And we're very close, to cut a long story short, to launching our app very shortly. And I'd like to feel that your members will help us once we get the pilot through. We're going to restrict the pilot to about 50 people. Then we're going to cascade it out to all of you. This is a gift. I'm funding this, okay? The software and all the rest of it. It's not Balens' money, it's my money. And, you know, I don't want thanks for it. I just feel that we've got to change the mindsets. You know, it's got to shift. It is shifting, we could say, but it's still very much in the wrong direction. You know, one size fits all. So we had a very inspiring conference last week, the Balens CPD, the annual event. That was on mental health and well-being. I would urge all of you to check it out. It's going to be on the website in a couple of months because it needs editing and stuff. Some of you may have attended. It was a brilliant day. And we had Rosie Daniel was talking about mapping mental and emotional health. We had the guy that does the social prescribing, the chair of the College of Medicine, Michael Dixon, telling us what's going on in networks. And there's ways that you can get in and get work through these social prescribing networks. We then had a lady from our lawyers who defend our clients talking about, you know, the legal side of mental health. And then we had a lady from Birmingham Mind who was telling us about all the maps and pathways. Again, there are ways that you as massage therapists can get plugged into that. And then we did our Hawthorne spot and we did a demo of the app. So there's a lot of good mind food in there. Our new website's got a lot of information on it. It's more of an educational platform than a kind of selling platform. But obviously we want to build portals and make it easier to contact, for our clients to contact us. So we are working on really system renewal, you know, trying to build back post-COVID, not in terms of business, but in terms of platform, service, IT, all of that stuff, because, you know, like all of you, or quite a few of you, I'm sure, you know, COVID's had a big effect on us. And I'm not whinging, I'm just sorry for all the people that have suffered. And I won't get political, don't worry. But all the people have suffered for whatever reason, wherever. Yeah. So
Fantastic. Right. Well,
anyway, look, I'll shut up now because I know you want to ask me a few questions. But I just want to say that there's stuff that we want to support you with that isn't just about insurance. And even if you don't have your insurance with us, you can still access some of these offerings that we have.
I think it's really interesting. And the reason I haven't cut in and stopped you is because it's really, I'm sure, unless people have actually been to the website and read the about section, which I'm not sure many people do when you go to an insurance website, they should do, because they get more of an insight into how much you are a champion for the cause of health and well-being, the campaigning you've done, the stuff you're involved in, especially after kind of moving away from Balens and having more time to do it. So it's nice. It's great to have an actual idea of what's going on behind Balens rather than just the stereotype insurance company. They'll catch you with the small print, all the kind of negative stuff we've got associated where they think it's just money, 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 money. You're never going to claim they're just taking your money, which is not at all what you guys are about. So it's really healthy to learn about, you know, you. I wanted to ask, before we move on to questions, I know Gary's got some questions from members which we're going to get through to. And don't forget, people who are joined us live, you're welcome to put questions there as well. I wanted to just ask you, what do you think have been the main strains for Balens as a company during COVID? You mentioned COVID, and I know we've all had the stress and strains, and it was particularly soft tissue therapists, because we've been told we can't work. Some people suddenly said you can work. It's been a mess, and we're talking about people losing their money and career. But just to get the other perspective before people asking questions, how's COVID-19 had an effect on the actual company selling insurance? What's it been like for you guys at the other end?
Well, I think the first thing is we've been just overwhelmed with queries. And the queries are a mixture of reasons. One is, like you said, their professional association couldn't give them a concrete answer about whether they could or couldn't do something. The government kept, as we know, for all sorts of reasons, changing its view. And of course, you had different things going on in different countries, like Ireland, Wales, and Scotland as well. So there was all of that. We did put notifications on our website, but not everyone would read it, or if they did, they would say, well, they're just trying to fob us off. But what we had to say was, look, it's a public health issue, ergo it's ruled by public health law. So we can't tell you to do something that the government is saying you can't do. So we were a bit of a whipping boy for quite a lot of frustration and activity at times, particularly, for those people that had a premises and found that their business interruption policy or section didn't cover a business interruption due to a pandemic. And as some of you may know, it went to it went on appeal to the highest courts in the land. And even they struggled to come up with a definitive answer, although it was, so we were caught in the crossfire of a lot of that, and, a lot of complaints because people couldn't get anywhere with their insurers. It's just, it has been an avalanche of queries and situations to deal with. And I'm not complaining. It comes with the territory. But you asked how it was. I would say extremely stressful for our staff. And I care very much about our staff as well as caring about our clients. And, everyone had to work from home. Our IT backbone had to support all sorts of things. Anyway, I won't go into a lot of detail. We haven't got much time.
No,
it's
that's fine.
been a challenge. And on top of that, because we have European clients, Brexit caused us massive headaches. So we had Brexit and COVID all hitting us at the same time for all sorts of different problems that they brought up, which you don't want to hear about here. But trust me, it's cost an arm and a leg and a lot of stress. Let's just leave it at that and draw a line.
Right. Okay. Now, people watching live will see that Gary has disappeared the camera wise. So I'm just going to kick Gary out and he can join in again. You can't see Gary either, can you, Dave?
No, I can see his name.
It's not just me, just his name. Right. So let's kick Gary out. Gary, the reason I'm kicking you out, it's not personal.
Is that,
you just turned into a brick wall.
Is that his screensaver?
So if you can hear me, Gary, you're out, but do join us again and come back. Boom, remove. I think it's because he uses a Mac. It's just one of these Mac people. That's all about. Anyway, Gary will be back shortly. But we've got some questions from people who from the STA, Sports Therapy Association, who have written in for us. Some of them, obviously, you might not be familiar with. I'm hoping some of them you are. It might not be obviously a black and white answer, but here they are. You ready? Yeah, you ready? Yeah, he's ready. Okay, so first of all, there was a couple of people who are asking about IASTM, so instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization. There seemed to be some people were suggesting that they're being charged an additional premium to have it covered. Some people are finding that it's part of the affinity scheme policy already. What is there a clear yes or no with regards to IASTM?
I had to ask the answer to this because I'm not so clued in day to day these days. But as I understand it, instrument assisted massage is covered and there's no additional to pay.
Okay.
However, instrument assisted mobilization requires an additional. So that's the difference.
There you go.
It's what you're using it for rather than whether you're using it or not.
Okay. People in here, if anyone here did ask that question, then let me know. Obviously, write in the comments if that has answered it. If you're listening on the podcast and you're one of the people who asked that question, then hopefully that answer has solved it. If it's not, then make sure you come into the Facebook page
or write us an email and we'll deal with it. Because the thing with what we do, we've got over I don't know how many, is it 4,000 different techniques and therapies we deal with at Balens, you know, and when you multiply that by 80 to 100,000 clients, you know, et cetera, the complexity is that sometimes the reason someone pays extra is because there's some other factors that it's not always obvious to the naked eye, as it were.
There you go, Gary's back. Thank you, David, for that answer. You're back, Gary. Nice to see you again. You had a shower? Much
yeah, I've had a power cut. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you look totally different. You had a shave. Yeah, definitely.
He did all that in 5 minutes.
I was going to say, that's amazing. He looks like a new man. He's lost 10 years.
My power went off on my Mac, iMac, so I've had to get my MacBook out. So I missed everything.
You didn't miss much.
We've been through all your questions. It's all covered. It's all answered. Yeah. No, all you missed, Gary, was the question about the instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. Some people getting charged, some people not. Apparently, it depends on what you're using the tool for. If it's for mobilization specifically, then there may well be a premium because you're using it for that. But if you're not using it for mobilization, if it's just for instrument-assisted, what do they call it, massage, then there's not. So it depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah, so Mike, to expand on the reason for the question then is that obviously we've got members who have a soft tissue qualification, sports massage, a level 3, level 4, for example. We've got graduate sports therapists, graduate sports rehabilitators. So what I put to Katie was, why are some people being charged a premium and others are not? And the question I had was, is it dependent on their core qualification? Because it may have been covered as part of a wider qualification in a sports therapy degree, but it might not have been covered in soft tissue.
I can't answer you without referring that, other than to say that normally that's not how we do it. When we're asked to do specific kinds of technique, which, as I explained earlier, we do about 4,000 plus of these. Usually there either is or isn't a rate depending on what it's used for. If it's used for specific mobilization and more invasive kind of work on the soft tissue, then as I understand it, they charge an additional premium. So it's not whether they covered it on a course or not, or how many years qual they've got. It's more about what they're actually using it for. We're assuming they're qualified in the first place, so that doesn't come in. They have the baseline for STA membership.
Just to expand on that then, if client A and client B both have the same qualification from training centre, X, the disparity has been that A and B have been given different information. So it's just a clarification really of what's going to be covered. And do you ask the question about what it's going to be used for then when somebody contacts you, or if they upload their certificate, is it just taken as that's the qualification?
Well, I think that's a good point. The answer to that is this is what I've been told. I think if you've got a couple of people who've got someone who's been charged extra where someone they know hasn't, the best thing is if you email me in the first instance, I think, and then I'll port it through to the right person. And we'll look into it, because as I said earlier, it's not an excuse, it's a reality, it's a fact. With 80,000 plus clients and 75 staff, occasionally you might get the odd person that comes in through one person who rates it a certain way, or someone misses the rating and doesn't rate someone when they should have rated it extra. So I think it could be about the mechanics of how it came into us. Normally we try and adhere to standards across the board, and we do. Our underwriting guide is pages thick, as you can imagine. So I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that probably if you get that kind of instance, let us know. And sometimes there's a very good reason why that's happened, and it's not what you think. There are other factors involved, as I said earlier, that make that a different scenario, and it's not particularly the technique, it's something else that's contributed to the loading.
Yeah, I know that you were mentioning earlier about post-COVID and some of the members have experienced difficulty in kind of getting through. How close are you back to being at capacity so that members can get access to the to the staff Are you back at full staffing numbers? You know, at the moment you're operating a contact system on certain days of the week, and how close are we getting back to, every day of the week, or 6 days, 5 days?
Yeah, well, I've tabled that motion in various board meetings as well. We're trying to tread the right line between the staff mental health and well-being, because it's been very, very stressful. It's not an excuse. Again, it's a fact. Clearing the backlogs so that we can actually deliver a service level agreement that equates with how it was pre-COVID. Certainly, we haven't got anyone on furlough anymore, so people are coming back. We've recruited more staff, so we're bringing new staff in. They'll need training. So to answer your question, I was hoping that we could have been back to, coming off was it 3 days a week on the phone? I think it was. Otherwise, getting people to email in by the end of this month, and I will find that out and get back to you just the progress on that. But certainly, everyone wants to get back to it. We have to just do it in a way that works for everybody. If people are urgent and they need to get through, very often the query is something which could have been just written in an email and responded to. And emails, certainly, we're getting back to people within 2 days, at worst 3 days, I'm given to understand. So I'm sorry if people have had struggles and problems with it. It's frustrating to me, and it's frustrating to everyone, and it's not where we want to be going forward, that's for sure. The other thing to say is that we've developed a client portal on our IT and website. One of the reasons we launched a new website is to enable us to do more stuff, because the old one had old technology. So this portal will allow people to actually download stuff straight through to us. And if it's straightforward things like change of address or phone number or additional quals, or they want another copy of their certificate because they've lost it or what have you, they can just do that without even contacting anyone at Balens, because it'll go straight into our database. So that's launching virtually any day now. So there are things we've been doing, particularly on our IT platform, behind the scenes, to try and, as it were, make it easier to get hold of us and easier to get what people want. So, I do take that very much on board, and I'll find out a date for you. But as I say, as I understood, it's in the next few weeks that we should be, back to strength.
Yeah, thank you. Matt, there's a couple of questions.
Yeah, we've got a few questions coming in. Let's just welcome, first of all, I don't know what our furthest joiner is live, but hi to Kamisatia Hegazi. Sorry about my pronunciation. Saying hello from Matru City, Egypt. I wish you great success. And you too, Kamis. Nice to have you join us. Thank you very much. And also, we got here Abdul Hafiz Paswaya again. Sorry about pronunciation. Abdul says, I do a lot of different treatments, including massage, etc. One of the treatments we provide is wet cupping, which isn't provided or covered by Balens at the moment. Will this be covered in the future? Wet cupping.
I was first approached by a college who taught cupping, where you actually pierce the skin, and if that's what the gentleman means by wet cupping, we insured it for a while, and in consultation with the insurers, we stopped insuring it. So if it's that kind, I know there's a traditional medicine role that kind of cupping has, but we stopped doing it. We were in at the beginning and stopped doing it. I think there are people that still do that. If it's any other kind of cupping, as I understand it, if it's part of what you learned on the course and it's non-invasive, we include it free of charge on a normal STA policy anyway.
Okay, Abdul, if you want to come back on that, obviously you're welcome. Continue writing in the comments. Thank you very much for that answer. Also, I noticed, going back to the topic of IASTM, Alex Hall says, I'll read it out for people listening on the podcast. The title of the CPD may be a source of confusion here. IASTM is instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. However, it's not mobilization in the traditional sense of the word. Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, I'm not that familiar with IASTM, but what is it people are doing with the tools which would be regarded as mobilization? Are they using them to try and manipulate or something?
Well, what are the tools, first of all? Presumably it's not a chisel and a hammer.
It looks like it, but they cost more. But no, it's like they're tools which you can either use for kind of like what they would call scraping, or just an alternative to fingers and elbows and things, graston sort of technique. and they're quite popular either for saving your hands and elbows, and some people will go further. But then I'm not sure myself. Actually, I probably need Alex. Maybe you're the person. What is there a type of use of this tool to actually perform mobilizations in the traditional sense, or I don't know. I'm not the person to ask for this. Somebody else.
Well, hang on a minute. If we're not talking about electrically driven
No, not at all.
instruments, if we're just talking about a hand device, and it's not used in any sensitive areas of the body where it could cause severe harm, if it's not, a sharp or pointed thing, which I wouldn't imagine it would be, I can't really see a problem with it. If they're using it to do, don't quote me on this because I could be dropping my what's it in this, but to me, it seems reasonable that if you're using a tool to save, RST and all the rest of it. I mean, I know my massage practitioner uses her elbows sometime, and that's not exactly a lightweight technique. I wouldn't actually see a problem with it. So I'll discuss that one with Katie, because that's the trouble with words, isn't it? Everyone has different associations with words and meanings. So let's. Have we got? Can someone send me a link to where these things are described so we can have a look at it?
Yeah, that'd be a good point.
Presumably, Katie's already seen it, or the team have already seen it. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but.
Okay, Alex, you asked a question.
That would be my view on it, really, because you're using your skill and care and knowledge that you've already learned and are growing with. So, I wouldn't see a problem including it personally at no additional charge, but I need to find out the whys and wherefores.
From my perspective, some of the techniques that I see, I think you mentioned it, the graston technique, Matt. To me, that looks so invasive. People are coming out covered in bruises, and I think that's far too invasive. And I think that in those instances, somebody needs to be producing a certificate of competency and not just a certificate of attendance. Because
I agree.
If you're carrying out a treatment that's causing that level of bruising, I'm flabbergasted by it. But a wider point from Alex then is that qualification and CPD titles, they change so much, where I'll use one example. There was one training provider who historically had a very good reputation for delivering a dry needling qualification. During COVID, it became a 2-day online 99 quid course, which I think is, well, I haven't got the words to describe it. It angers me. But why are they getting away with it? Is it the industry's fault? Is it the insurer's fault? Should the insurance company be saying, well, actually, we don't accept that? Because I've gone out to my members and said, look, I don't accept this course for CPD because I don't think it's safe. I don't think you can be assessed appropriately over a Zoom call, sticking needles in people when there's so much risk.
I agree. Well, look, we were having a very nice conversation before we went online, weren't we, Matt? And we talked a bit about this whole issue about CPD qualifications, etc. And I did say to you that Balens has had a policy, not rigid, but a general policy, which is that we didn't accept distance learning courses where there's no practical component and where there's no proper examination. And we could have been very rich, because there are insurance brokers who take all of this stuff. They get thousands and thousands of clients. Not all of them stay longer than a year or 2 years, but that's for them. We believe in supporting the sector and in standards, not rigidly or dogmatically. You have to be flexible and common sense. And amongst that has been our view on CPD, first of all, and then I'll talk about dry needling in a minute. CPD, for us, is about the growth and the development of the individual, and shouldn't necessarily be a way of earning more money fairly cheaply and at not great cost to you in terms of the work that you put in to get that qual. Now, we get asked this a lot, particularly chiropractors who are very highly, as you know, qualified. And there are certain CPD courses we will not accept. They have, because they are attendance courses. Now, unless there's a certificate of competence, which has been judged, then that's normally not fodder for us. I can't say hand on heart that 103% of everything that's been sent to us doesn't occasionally slip through, because you can imagine how many thousands of courses there are and have been in history. But we do our best, and we make a pretty good fist of it. But the point I'm making here is that we do uphold those standards you've just enunciated, Gary. And I would also talk further about dry needling, because for years we've agreed dry needling. Initially, it was the osteos and the chiros that needed it, because they were starting to find, as you know, that there are certain ways you can reduce inflammation, there are certain ways that you can help ease pain, all the rest of it. That's fine, but they have to have had some way of being judged competent, even if they're osteos or chiros. So for people to do an online course to anyone who hasn't even done the equivalent of a university degree in osteo or chiro, for example, or physio, for me that would be a no. And the whole of the staff know that is our approach. So hopefully nothing major has slipped through in that regard. And I want to say something else about dry needling. We had courses that we said, okay, we'll insure these people in Ireland, and we learned after the event that the course person was not adhering to the standards we'd laid down. And actually, out of the blue, we got about 4 or 5 serious claims for dry needling, serious to the point that the insurer wanted to pull out of dry needling in Ireland. So, that wasn't our reason. Our reason was about standards. But here you have an obvious example of, if you don't maintain those standards, and it's not just about, oh, they'll pay a claim, that's tough. Think about the poor patient client who had to suffer at the hand of it. Let's be clear about this. This isn't just about our profession or our sector. It's about the people we're looking after. So, So as you can imagine, I'm quite exercised about it, even though I'm feeling quite chilled this evening.
Yeah, so what happens at the moment on the SCA Affinity scheme, dry needling is covered in the normal premium, and medical acupuncture, which is an extra 3 to 6 days training above and beyond dry needling, that attracts a 25% premium. So just for anybody who's listening to the podcast,
could I just interrupt you and ask, what does medical acupuncture mean? Because 3 to 5 days extra doesn't feel much to do a proper acupuncture course. So what's involved in that?
No, we're not talking about an acupuncture degree, but dry needling typically is described as trigger point needling.
Yeah, sure.
When people are along the respected trainers like Dr. Chris Norris and Bernard Nolan, they teach medical acupuncture, which is the start of the working on meridians and probably disease management, if you like. I mean, I don't dry needle anyway, so I'm probably not the best person to explain it, but my understanding is there's an extra 3 to 5 days practical training, but there's also a number of case studies, some pre-course reading, some theoretical assignments, etc. So it's not necessarily just 3 to 5 days training. It's a lot more comprehensive. But one of the things that gets me again is, some of these companies are accepting level 3 sports massage therapists, and over the years, going back to pre-2009, the level 3 was quite a comprehensive qualification. 2009 to 14, some was, some wasn't, and in 2014 and the industry has to take the blame for this, for allowing it to happen and not challenging it enough at the time. And the awarding organisations simply sell courses. It's a numbers game to them. But we've now got a situation where a level 3 sports massage therapist qualified after 2014 has no remedial remit whatsoever, and the insurance limits that. And I do explain this to my members, that they're applying massage to non-pathological tissue, and yet some of these companies are saying, well, yeah, you can come and do our dry needling course, or you can come and do our instrument assisted course. And to me, that's immoral and unethical, because they can't use it. They can't become insured for it. And I've spoken, with the Balens team, and, I'm relieved to say that they support me, and they do come through to me to ask me for clarification on certain things. So, I'm tightening up on
it. I mean, absolutely. And that's that's the way we work. We're affinity driven, and we support you and your views. Now, not all affinities have those standards, and we have to work with other people. But there comes a point where there is a common norm below which no one wants to go. But there will always, I suspect, be a place that those sorts of people can get insured. It's just not our bag, really. Any other questions that I haven't answered that you think are important?
We've got a few, Gary. What about the shockwave therapy? Made a few questions about that, didn't we? Move on.
So,
sorry, it's just some of these names do make me smile. I've heard a few in my time.
So again,
you don't do leeches, presumably, do you? You haven't got.
Well, that's wet cupping, isn't it? I think they've already talked about that.
No,
that's the idea behind it.
Matt, just be aware that some of these questions coming in from.
Yes, I can see.
Yeah, we'll leave those out. But yeah, shockwave therapy. To me, there are training companies out there. There are some very good training companies, and we've had 2 web chats with Over Ingard and Mike Grice on the efficacy of shockwave and who should and who shouldn't be administering it. I'm seeing on social media, level 3 sports massage therapists buying a cheap Chinese gun and using it. I'm wondering, is there a minimum standard that the person should be educated to for you to accept them, to have a shockwave on their policy?
I'm not trying to be political or avoiding the question. What I'd rather say is, I don't know what shockwave guns are. The fact they come from China is interesting, but most devices do seem to come from there. I think that's something that should be discussed with the team and in conjunction with how you as an association want the scheme to run. I think we have to support your view on these things. I mean, some of the schemes you've run in the past, a reflexology one from the 1990s. Yeah, we've been doing it this long, over 30 years in specializing. She didn't want anything other than reflexology on her scheme. And, the fact that was always a multi-therapy thing, you always find people doing massage or other bits and bobs of aromatherapy, absolutely only that. And we respected that, so what I'm saying is it can be as restrictive or as open as you want. And at the end of the day, look, I know from many years in the sector, thousands of conversations over the years with people that, they like building their palette. It's what makes them unique to their clients, is the range of things that they can offer and are skilled in. So we try not to be overly, I'm going to use the D word. I haven't used D word for so long, dogmatic about this. It's obviously a theme. We try and keep an open mind. There are obviously standards. How different is it, for example, from a pulse machine or electrotherapy? Is it similar kind of thing, or is it a bit more invasive? If that's the case, then we obviously need to know what are the safety features, how well are people trained, do they know what the red flags would be for using that? Like, for example, if someone's got high blood pressure, is that something that they would have shockwave therapy, or it's a non-starter? So there's a whole load of stuff that goes behind this. We do a lot of beauty therapists, for example, in that sector. We got pulled in some years ago to help out, and it's mind-numbing the number of different techniques and treatments that there are. And a lot of them are electrotherapy, and quite a few of them are quite invasive. And we work very much with the large beauty organizations who set standards to, we work with them as to what is safe, and it's kind of what I'm trying to say is it's an evolving conversation rather than a yes/no answer.
So do you, if you and I had a chat, or I and one of your team had a chat about shockwave therapy, then do you then take the information and go to the underwriters and ask for an opinion on that, or do you go to the underwriters and say, well, I want this covered on the policy? Who has the final say in it?
Well, that's a very good point. We are deemed specialists by the insurers, so they give us a fair amount of, I almost said rope to hang ourselves. Not quite. They give us they give us a bit of leeway because of our expertise and experience. So within certain parameters, we will generally judge something is okay or not okay. If it's out with the norm and or particularly invasive and new, then it's something we'll assess all the risk, we'll get all the guff from the person asking, we'll then refer it to underwriters and dialogue with them. So it's not that we have ultimate total decision all the time, but within the day-to-day flow of business with 4,000 plus techniques, as I said, certain guidelines about what courses and what competency we're looking for, we have a certain degree of autonomy.
Yeah, and can an association like ours then, could we negotiate exclusions if we felt strongly about?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely,
of
course. Yeah, because look, at the end of the day, if people, it's a free country, they can choose another insurer, or they could choose another association if they felt, and some people do, they feel, well, I want to do this and they don't like this, so I'm going to leave. There's all sorts of things that discuss what people do. Our interest is you and your members. For the purpose of this talk, nothing else exists and nothing else is important. It's what you and the members want.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Matt, that you can see?
I've been looking through here. There's no, I think everyone is sitting there. I mean, there was one person again. I don't want to miss Catherine out. Catherine says, this is going back a bit, but I paid extra for cupping therapy. I use it as an aid alongside sports massage. Was this dry cupping then, Catherine, I presume? It sounds similar to ISTM. Should it have been under the umbrella of sports massage? So you said that already, David, and you said if it's dry cupping, then it should come underneath the umbrella in theory. Or
to give you an idea, we do the Shiatsu Society and various Shiatsu associations. They use cupping. In fact, they use moxa and cupping, which is heat-based cupping. And in fact, as far as I can remember, we didn't charge extra for that because it was part and parcel of what they did. But as I said, where it's the sort of cupping, they call it wet cupping, and I think it's the one where they actually draw blood, and that can produce bruising and stuff and wheals and stuff as well, And it's a traditional technique, and people get benefit from it, and that's fine. And the people that we insured were ultra hygienic. They did all videos to explain how much risk prevention, etc. But we won't go into it. For various reasons we stopped doing it, but certainly the dry cupping and or moxa cupping is something we've done for 30 plus years.
So maybe an email then, Catherine, just to check what happened there. There might be some
and
other
again, look,
reasons.
guys, if you got chuck them through Matt and me, and then I'll sort it out with the teams for you. Gives me something to do apart from gardening and music. And
doesn't sound like you're doing that much. Was there any other questions from members, Gary, that you had on your list at all? I don't think I've got any more down here. I think we've covered them all.
Yeah, one of the things that comes up regularly, and we're talking about CPD again, David, and people will ring me and ask me for advice, and they say, "Well, I'm thinking of doing a one-day diploma with a major provider," and I question whether it's worthy. Why it's called a one-day diploma. It doesn't meet the educational criteria. From an insurance perspective, how frustrated are you? And I know things have changed, and you mentioned earlier about with COVID, we are seeing more blended learning programs. And again, I think it was mentioned that I can't see us going back to the old system now. Things have been introduced, and they seldom get de-introduced, whatever the word is. But how frustrated are you with the way that some training providers are delivering content over which there seems to be no external validity, and does it make your job difficult?
What makes it difficult is when you refuse people. Because they don't always like to take no for an answer because they've invested all this money or they've got their heart set on doing something. As I said to you, a one-day diploma doesn't sound... I don't know what the word is, but it's not, you wouldn't normally associate one day learning with a diploma.
No.
And I mean, if it's a simple technique which is tested and can be tested, objectively tested, so that person is competent, well, great, you know. Frustrated probably isn't the right word, because I appreciate people want to make money and they're trying to be creative by delivering courses and marketing those courses and stuff. And people want a point of difference when they're treating other people. I do get all that. But we mustn't forget not just the health and well-being of the client, but the reputation of the sector and the reputation of the association. You know, and so there are kind of a lot of soft issues around this that are not immediately obvious, that are tied into what you've just said. And for me, if I take my insurance hat off, because as an insurer, we'll either do it or not, or we'll try and be flexible, or if we got something a bit wrong, we'll try and make it right. But, you know, I think from a bigger perspective, you know, we all want to be taken more seriously by the decision makers. That's, as I say, one of the reasons why we've got our Hawthorne Collaborative, which, by the way, is apolitical, and it's a community we want to build internationally. We have all sorts of people internationally. And, you know, it's about coming together and finding what unites us. And you know, I know when you're competing with other people, it's what's your point of difference. But surely that model, you know, that kind of Darwinian thing is only good up to a certain point, and it's not actually how the world operates. It operates more on cooperation and collaboration. So I think that, you know, from a point of view of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm obviously rambling off the point badly, but I think that, you know, there are bigger issues, let's put it that way. And this kind of, if it is that, I'm not saying it is, but if a one-day diploma course is actually stepping outside of, you know, everything that you are trying to build, you know, respectability, acceptability, whatever it is that you feel is lacking from a greater recognition by a government and politicians who still refer to your sector as massage parlors, you know, etc. You know, I rest my case. There's a big mental shift that needs to go on there. And I agree with you, post-COVID, things are different. And the thing is, okay, there's certain things you can learn online. You can get generic information online. You can even do a bit of monitoring and mentoring online. There is no substitute for being in the same room as someone, having that feedback, having that kind of group interaction and group learning that you get in a class. And of course, having proper exams and quals where people have to sweat their stuff and work hard to get that sense of achievement at the end of it. And ultimately, there are no shortcuts. You know, I'm 73 in September. I'm still, I almost swore there, I'm still bloody learning. And, you know, you asked me, one of the questions you asked me was like, and what do you think you've achieved, or what your greatest achievement is? I don't think I've achieved anything. I'm very much work in progress. Balens is work in progress. We all are, yeah. You know, but we got to have a sense of humor and kind of feel that we're part of something bigger, and that we can't keep blaming, whether it's the government or we're blaming COVID or we're blaming something. You know, at the end of the day, we just got to do our stuff the best we can, not be shortchanged, not shortchange our clients. And I'm sure you as an association don't shortchange your members. So, you know, if that's helpful, it's helpful. Otherwise, definitely. It's a rant from an old git.
No, we do actually, on our CPD page and on our membership criteria page, we do publish guidance for people who are looking for progression training, if you like, things that we don't accept for any membership. So, you know, we're doing as much as we can. But as you said, you know, when you are too strict, and, you know, we were criticised during COVID pandemic for being very strict with our guidance, and I think that strong leadership was required. I didn't want to get myself into the position where I was having to retract statements and you know, apologize. So I said, you know, this is what we've, you know, we've consulted health and safety and legal representatives. This is what we've decided for our members, and we probably had 6 or 7 members left because they wanted to continue working, when probably I thought they shouldn't. But we probably had 150 join on the strength of our guidance.
Position.
Yeah. And I think that's what's needed. I think we as an industry, insurers and associations need to work collaboratively. It was one of your words, to promote these standards and maintain the standards. And I talk to Katie, frequently, and I'm always impressed by the answers that I get and how much they're willing to help us. And if they don't know the information, they'll go and they'll call me back that day. And I'm quite happy to give general advice to my members, but I do stress the point that I'm not regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, so I can't give specific insurance advice, but I can give them advice about the affinity scheme that we hold with yourselves.
Sure.
And just try and take away some of the administrative queries that you might get, which I could quite willingly and ably answer.
We're very much in your gratitude, sir. The other thing, just to say, I noticed that you've surreptitiously stuck our shiny new website on the screen.
I want to bring it up. You keep talking. I'm going to put it on full screen so people watching.
Yeah, I do keep talking. I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
Keep going. No,
I mean that screen is showing you our new website, and on there, as I was explaining before we went online, it's more of an educational site rather than a salesy site. We will develop more and more portals so you can communicate with us without having to go through the phone line, as I said earlier. But one of the things that I think you'll find quite helpful, if you look on educational resources, which I think you found there, it's CPD films. The last 8 or 9 years of our lectures, the library of that is in that place, and it's free access for you, whether you're insured with us or not. And you can look at some of these things on all sorts of topics, not just legal stuff, health and well-being stuff, client therapeutic relations stuff, research, big picture health, social prescribing, mental and emotional health, all sorts of stuff on there. And as I say, it's worth if you get a spare minute, you want a bit of CPD, you can watch some of those films too.
Definitely. I mean, that's balens.co.uk, people, if you can't see the screen. And there is so much information on there. I was having a look around on there before. And again, it's like how we started off. You think insurance company, they're just going to take your money and that's it. That's what insurance companies do, because it's like the films, and it's just this just false image we've got of you. But when you look at your website, you can see basically the input that you've had into it. There's so much information there, which is above and beyond just taking money for insurance. So it's definitely something worth looking at, people. And we'll make sure the link goes into the podcast notes. Sorry, Gary, you were going to say?
No, what I was going to say was on David's point there, that if the STA members who are watching or listening in, if they want to use some of those video content for their CPD, then we are currently we all produce a CPD statement at the end of the year when we renew, but Scott and I are working on an interactive document where it will give you guidance on how to produce your CPD statement. And one of the things that we including is that when you watch a video, that we have a reflective practice, so that you'll watch a video, write a couple of paragraphs of whether it was new learning, whether it was revisiting or revision, how it will inform your practice, or whether you want to argue with it. I don't agree with this because, or I agree with this because, and so we are flexible with our CPD policy. We don't provide training, we don't make people pay for training, but we do provide these web chats and lots of resources for our members. So yeah, I thank you for that resource, David, and I'll have a look through.
Oh, it's a pleasure. The other thing just to say is that we deliberately don't theme our conferences and have our lecture content as therapy specific. We feel that professional associations do that. We don't want to tread on their feet. What we're more interested in is bringing bigger picture stuff in, or stuff from doctors and researchers and people that maybe you wouldn't normally come into contact with, that are kind of talking about global or bigger, as I say, bigger picture issues. So and there's some good people there: Professor David Peters, George Lewis, Paul Dieppe, Rob Verkerk, all sorts of doctors and other people bringing their angle on things, and there's some quite interesting talks. There's even one about the Advertising Standards Authority and how you should be careful with the language you choose and things like that. So yeah, it's quite a variety.
Great, fantastic stuff. Well, look, it's 9:06 already. So Gary, have you got anything else particularly you want to say whilst we've got people's attention?
Well, I was just going to just follow up on David's point there that, what the STA web chat does is it does exactly the same as you've described. We look at the periphery, and what Matt's done over the past year is he's invited some really high quality esteemed guests to talk about things that as a sports therapist or sports massage therapist may not be your first port of call, and we've tried to open the eyes and the ideas of our members to a wider audience, and we've talked about things on the periphery. As I said, we've talked about men's pelvic health, women's pelvic health. We're talking about endometriosis coming up. We're tackling the subjects that don't usually get tackled. We're trying to do things differently to other associations. We're trying to make that connection with our members, and we're trying to encourage our members to make a connection with their clients. It's not about stacking up CPD and, I've got 25 modalities that I can use. It's about the therapeutic alliance is a buzzword, a buzz phrase at the moment. It's how we can work together for the benefit of the client, because that's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we're trying to make people better. We're not trying to fix them. We're trying to facilitate an improvement. So, that's what we're all about.
Very good. I like it. Yeah, it's all healthcare, isn't it? And the more we do work with other professionals, and the more we kind of break down these borders, the more we can help the person who comes to see us, rather than just getting reputation for massaging a quad, a rectus femoris, or a semitendinosis. It's all past that now. We're getting people who come to see us, and because people come to see us who are in pain and discomfort, we need to be aware of what else could be causing that pain and discomfort, and refer them on to maybe rheumatology, like we had the chat there with Jack March and the male pelvic health. And so, yeah, I'm hoping it's working. We're getting good feedback. And today we've realized now that even the insurance company, who you thought was just a letter that came to the post to remind you had to pay them more, is actually part of that healthcare system, without a doubt. And it's definitely another angle to people who can help you, and you can help them, and we can all kind of help the people together, our patients and clients. So thank you very much, Dave, for coming along. We didn't get a chance to talk about Interplay or Bill Evans or anything, or I was going to talk about Bucky Pizzarelli and have a chat about some jazz guitar next time. Maybe we'll have to do that.
I'm still playing jazz, so yeah.
I want to look out for that CD coming out as well. We'll have to link to that. Can't wait. I'm very interested.
I'll send you. It's I would say it's a tapestry of sounds, songs, chants, and instrumentals. So it's I'm calling it Moments in Time, and it's just snapshots of my life over the last 20, 30 years. Yeah,
it sounds
maybe more. So yeah,
it's been quite a life.
Do you like it?
Oh, I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to being on hold. I'm gonna ring up tomorrow at a really busy time and go on.
Well, you probably have plenty of practice on that one at the moment, I'm afraid. Yeah, but we're working on it.
Yeah,
and as I said, if any of you get to hear of things that don't quite sound right or don't quite marry up to what I've said tonight about standards, and as I said, it's sometimes quite easy for things to happen, and we can put it right if we know about it, but sometimes we don't always get the full information from the client, not just whether we've allowed a course that maybe is a bit light. So it's work in progress. It's all work in progress, isn't it? And I'd like to thank you guys before I go. Matt, you've done brilliantly. You just very cool, very relaxed, very effective. Superb communication. Gary, also thank you for all that you've said, and about trying to strike the right note. And I'm glad to see all those people joined you, because you stood by your leadership values, and that's so important.
Thank you.
Good man, good leader. Not a manager, is a leader.
I'll just, if I may, I'll just finish. I apologise I've not answered those questions. I haven't got access to the chat. I can see the questions, but I can't type anything in. So, yeah, hi, Brian. Sorry I missed your point earlier, mate. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate both of your time again.
Thank you, Annabelle Soravito. I hope that okay, pronunciation wise, says these podcasts are so informative. I've learned so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. It's always great to get feedback. Don't ever feel embarrassed about telling us how good we are. We love it. We've all imposter syndrome. We don't believe it. We just think we're kind of blagging it. But so it's really nice to hear positive feedback. Please send it through. M. Turner as well has been kind enough to say, nice to see the face and hear the voice behind the yearly invoice. Isn't that great? That's how that is the tagline for today's episode. There's actually a person behind Balens, and
that's not the voice of romance, that's for sure.
Right, so next Tuesday, I'm on holiday next Tuesday, aren't I? So it's going to be up to very exciting for once again, Mike Grice is going to be, let's have some solo here for Mike. Mike Grice is going to be here with Gary for an episode entitled Graduate Sports Therapists, What Career Options? I couldn't fit any more characters on that. So that's going to be the title. And there's going to be guests from the STA as well, graduate sports therapists, to discuss that. So it should be a nice information-packed episode for you. I will be back the week afterwards, where Gary's already mentioned we're going to have an endometriosis special, where there will be that topic to discuss. Again, something which maybe a lot of people don't know about, but we're fortunate to have special guest Deborah Thurlow-Rowley here to talk about that and her own story. And it should be, again, something which will help you help others, which is what our industry is all about. So on behalf of myself and Dave Balens without an S and Gary Benson, I wish you all well. And we'll see you. I won't see you, but I'll see you in 2 weeks. But yeah, do come back next Tuesday for Sports Therapy Association podcast at 8 o'clock on Tuesday. Thanks, Dave. See you later, Gary.
Take care. See you all. Bye.